everyone, and welcome back to Morning Cup. I'm so glad you're here today, and I hope everybody had an amazing Easter, Passover, whatever you celebrate with your loved ones, your family, friends, significant others. So I just wanted to mention that for today. But this week, we are talking about something I have definitely experienced a lot, and I'm sure some of you have as well. Maybe you haven't, and I hope you haven't, but maybe you did. And that is procrastination. So we're going to be talking all about that this week and in this video today, but we're going to start with our quote to get another powerful week started. So the quote is, "The habit of always putting off an experience until you can afford it, or until the time is right, or until you know how to do it, is one of the greatest burglars of joy. Be deliberate. But once you've made up your mind, jump in." And that's by Charles R. Swindoll. And I really appreciate this quote because I really do think a lot of times we wait until we think everything's perfect, or we wait till we have all our ducks in a row. And as an entrepreneur, that doesn't really always happen. As much as we might want it to, it doesn't. But it really goes back to being intentional of the decisions we make. And a lot of times too, when we put off these experiences or really dive into something, it holds us back if we're not just doing it. If we hold back ourselves or sabotage or procrastinate on what we really want, because we could be missing out on life-changing experiences, people, things that might come our way. But if we're holding ourselves back, we're not really being open to receiving. And that's what this quote really stood out to me, of just experiences I've had, even when I got intentional of, okay, I wanted to move to Chicago for 3 years. It was not happening. And then in May of 2021, I decided I'm moving to Colorado. July, I was here. So it's really about being intentional and deliberate of what we're doing, but trusting ourselves. So why do we procrastinate? Why procrastinate? Well, there's so many different reasons why we might, but we're just going to touch on a few today. And the first one I want to talk about is unhealthy lifestyle. So a lot of times we might say, okay, I'll go to the gym tomorrow, or I'll cook that healthy meal tomorrow or later. And those never come because we keep putting it off. We keep focusing on, okay, well, I'll get to it. No problem. But we don't get to it. And that's where the unhealthy lifestyle might come in, because we think we can put it off. And until something becomes dire where our health gets impacted, then we start looking at it. But instead of getting ahead of it and preventing. Perfectionism. It's a huge one. I know it's something I experience where it's almost like paralysis of analysis, where you're like, I want it to be perfect. And that's where it doesn't allow you to take action. I know when I first started my business, I was like, okay, I want my website to look perfect. I want my Instagram to look perfect. Everything had to look perfect. And instead, that was holding me back, because instead of just doing it, just getting out there and getting clients, I held myself back a little bit and was procrastinating on certain things because I wanted to have this perfection, and that doesn't exist. And I got over that really quickly. Fear. Fear is another huge aspect of procrastination. Fear of not knowing what's going to happen, or fear of the uncertainty as well, but fear of not being perfect, or fear of not meeting expectations. Lack of assertiveness is another one. Lack of assertiveness. If you are not speaking up for what you need, what you want, delegating, that can really put more pressure on you and put more things on your plate, especially as a business owner, being able to handle that more effectively and just being very direct. Self-sabotage, another huge one, where it kind of intertwines a lot with perfectionism, because it's almost like you start to pull yourself back because it's not perfect, or the self-doubt comes into play. So you start sabotaging. So for instance, a healthy lifestyle. If you start to sabotage, maybe instead of cooking those healthy meals, you start ordering takeout from places that aren't maybe as healthy. Maybe you had scheduled to go to the gym or yoga classes or something active, and you stop going, or I'm tired, or I'll just watch Netflix. Not allowing yourself to actually do the things that you want to do, sabotage starts to play into that. And we're going to talk about that in one of the next videos. And the last one to talk about today is unreasonable expectations and high goals. So what do I mean by that? What does that look like? When we have this astronomical goal, right? Like you have this huge vision. Maybe it's like a 10-year vision. Cool, wonderful. And I hope you do. Maybe even 15, 20, 30, 50 years. But the difference is these goals and expectations are so high that you can't reach them tomorrow. It's going to take time. You need to take it step by step. And that's where procrastination starts to seep in, because you're like, well, I can't get from 0 to 100 in a minute. You just can't. Maybe you can get from 0 to 10 and then 10 to 20, maybe then 20 to 25, maybe 25 to 50, whatever it is. But it's small increments that are going to get you to that bigger goal. But if it's unreasonable, it's going to play a part in procrastination, because you're like, well, how am I going to really get there? And a lot of this is unconscious. We're not fully aware of it all the time. And that's why these are just some of the reasons why we might procrastinate. So what are the signs of procrastination? Well, we're just, again, going to go over a few. There's so many more, but these are some of them that are a little bit easier to find maybe or spot. So negative self-talk and negative self-beliefs. I intertwine both of them because a lot of times it is, again, unconscious, but it's telling yourself things or believing certain things that are not allowing you to take that action, to take that step, to just start. So that's one. Then unrealistic goals, like we were talking about the expectations and high goals. When it's unrealistic, it really makes it a sign of not being able to move forward. Having uncertain goals. So maybe you have the vision, but you have no idea how you're going to get there. And sometimes we don't know the how, but it's taking those steps. But the uncertainty doesn't allow you to move forward. Again, it's all about moving forward and not staying stuck. Overwhelmed. How many people have ever felt overwhelmed? I know I have a lot of times, because it's almost like I would overbook everything. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put all these things on my plate. This will be fine. And then I'm like, where do I start? Or I'm like, okay, I'll get to that later. And later never comes in certain aspects, certain projects I might be working on, and the overwhelm can set in. So it kind of might look a little bit more like you're feeling just like your palms might be sweating. You might be on edge a little bit. You might be irritable. Those are just some of the signs. And then afraid of failing. How many people have ever been afraid of failing? I know I have. But being able to know that that is a sign of procrastination, because you don't want to fail. So instead of doing it, you don't do it because you don't want to fail. Simple, right? Easily bored. Being able to just know that like you might get easily bored. So you're like, well, I don't really want to do this. And then you put it off, even if it's something that you need to do. It might not be something fun, because, business is like 80% we love what we do. 20% is all the other little things we have to do. And then hard time meeting deadlines. Maybe it's you wait to the last minute. I used to do this in school all the time, especially grad school. I would wait to the very last minute to write a paper or do something that needed to get done like the next day or in 2 days. I wasn't really good at preparing in that regard, because it's like, oh, I have time. I'll get to it later, tomorrow. That definitely creeped up really quickly. Easily distracted. It's like shiny object syndrome. We're going to talk about it in a little bit, but being able to like, you're just kind of like, oh, this is cool. I want to do this. I want to do that. And you're not able to focus in clearly. And that can really distract you as well. Putting things off. So sometimes we put off relationships, experiences, because we're so fixated on business, or vice versa. And that could be a lot of procrastination as well. So those are just some of the signs. Now let's get into the types of procrastination. So there's two. It's acute and chronic. So acute is out of the ordinary behavioral patterns that you're experiencing. So this can be caused by just like an irritable, like emotional state. It might be something that happened, circumstantial, things along those lines. Low energy levels. You might just be really tired. It might have been a long day. Not taking a break after a demanding task. How many of you have done this? I know I have done this a lot, where I'll just book things back to back to back in the beginning, especially of my entrepreneurial journey, and not being able to take a break really impacted me, because I would be so tired at the end of the day, but I would be really excited because I was passionate about what I was doing. However, it really started to take a turn where I was like, oh, well, I'll put this off till later. And it was just because I didn't give myself that break time. and tasks was delegated to you when you feel someone else should have done it. So a lot of times maybe you, as a business owner, you are delegating different things to people, and maybe it comes back and it's not how you want it to. That can cause you to maybe not want to do it right away, or getting frustrated, irritable. Those aspects as well can really play a part into acute procrastination. As for chronic, it's more of a deep, permanent, strong psychological cause. So this isn't something that easily can be eliminated. And it's really caused by a shift in mood, triggers, your energy levels. All of those things play a huge part in the reasons, but it's a constant thing. Like we've talked about burnout before on here, and just how it becomes chronic. It's over time. If we're not dealing with the acute procrastination, it can become chronic. Simple as that. And now getting into the different types of procrastinators. But before we do, there are 4 different ones. And I want to know which one you resonate with most if you are one of these procrastinators. There's 2 that I resonated with. Well, kind of resonate with all of them. However, there's one that I used to be and one I am now. But I'm aware. Self-awareness is key. But I would love for you to guess which one you think I am before I tell you guys. So with that being said, the first one is the performer. So amazing under pressure, perfectionism. The problem and the challenge is the difficulty in getting started sometimes, because there's this stagnant of, well, if it's not perfect, I don't want to do it. A great example, this isn't business related, but when I was a college cheerleader, I had a mental block from tumbling. So doing all those flips and all those fun things that you might see on TV or anything like that, or the Cheer documentary on Netflix, but this is not sponsored. But with that being said, I got this mental block, and it was my sophomore year in college, sophomore, junior year, and I couldn't do just a back handspring where you kind of sit back, your hands go back, and then your feet flip over, if you can visualize that. And I just couldn't do it. Like, I didn't want to do it because this mental block was preventing me from doing it. I was procrastinating. I did all these different tactics, and then I would have somebody spot me. So literally somebody would put like their finger there. They weren't touching me, not like helping me whatsoever. I would do it perfect. The moment they stepped away, I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. And part of that was I wanted it to be perfect every time. The perfectionism in me was really coming out, but I just had a difficulty getting started and doing it on my own. And eventually I got over that and I was fine, but it took some time. And that's where the perfectionism comes into play, and the procrastination too. Then you have the self-deprecator, and this is somebody who's extra hard on themselves. And it might look like them feeling lazy for taking a break, or even literally saying, I am just being lazy right now, or anything along those lines. And the difficulty is they can't take a break. It feels foreign to them. They don't feel like they deserve it, or they're good enough for that, or they have this like hustle culture mindset. And the best way to really counteract this is recharge. Go for a walk, be able to stretch, have a cup of tea, being able to just really recharge from those moments instead of working right through. Kind of like we were talking about earlier with the tasks as well. So those are the first 2. Moving into the second 2 is the overbooker. Pros at having a booked calendar. Everything is color coded. It's time stamped of like every hour is completely done. They know exactly what they're doing. And I like to call these individuals avoiders. I can't. I'm so busy. My calendar's booked. Let's schedule something else. The issue at hand is they're creating chaos. In relationships, there's a lot of fear around things. So my question to these individuals is, what are you really avoiding? And because a lot of times when we are planning things, we are so busy. There's a reason behind it sometimes. I would say 9 out of 10 times, but I could be wrong. But regardless, it's being able to understand, okay, well, why are you staying so booked? Is it a badge of honor? Is it being able to feel really liked, people pleasing, like what we talked about a few weeks ago on one of my videos, but being able to really be that center of like, I'm socialite or anything along those lines too, but being able to understand, okay, well, what's the deeper meaning behind that? the procrastination piece. And then the last one is a novelty seeker. So, like we were talking about earlier, the shiny object syndrome. So, it's almost like if you've ever seen the movie Finding Nemo, Dory, where she is like looking around, she's like, oh, and it's like almost like you kind of get very distracted very easily by shiny things, shiny projects, new ideas, exciting things happening in your life, especially for business. But the issue at hand is there's a lot of implementation without follow through. So because all these ideas are coming, you start something, and then you're like, oh, well, let's start this, let's start that, instead of just really putting your energy and focus into what's in front of you and what you want to see grow, and then getting to the other parts. So what you can do if you are the novelty seeker is to keep a notepad, write it down, revisit it later, write all these amazing ideas down, and you'll eventually get to them. But it's really focusing on one thing at a time to reduce the procrastination or eliminate it at all costs. So I'm curious, which one do you think that I am, or was, or both? Like I was asking earlier. But in the meantime, write down in the comment section, which one are you? Let people know, because I feel like, too, it just can relate to other people. And the reason I'm talking about this topic is because it's something I've experienced, and I feel like others have too, just from my circle and talking to friends, family, clients, everyone in my circle. But to start off, I used to be a combination of all of them, like I said, but the primary one was definitely the overbooker. So I was really avoiding creating chaos, especially relationships or fears of not being good enough or deserving, or just limiting myself in certain ways. So instead, I would book myself, and I wouldn't say I'm so busy, but I would say I'm so busy, but how can I fit this in? But I would make excuses around certain topics like dating or other things in my life where I just wasn't really focused on being able to be open and really own that I was avoiding certain things. So that's what I used to be. And now, I would say I'm a little bit more on the self-deprecator. I can be hard on myself. That's the former perfectionist in me. I'm not really the full-on performer, but I mean, there's elements in there. But with being able to not be so hard on myself, I've really been able to recharge, take walks, stretch, do yoga, do things that I know are going to really soothe my soul so I don't procrastinate too much, and being able to understand that. And again, key self-awareness. So let me know in the comment section. I really want to know what other people are too, if you guessed right, or if you are similar to me. So how do you stop procrastination? Well, the first thing is get organized. Create a to-do list. Prioritize things. Put it down on paper, in your phone, on your computer, wherever you're going to see it the most, so it can mentally keep you focused on what you need to get done that day. Because a lot of times we have so many things going on. We can have one thing that leads to 100 more things as entrepreneurs. So it's really important to stay organized in the best way possible. Eliminate distractions. I cannot emphasize this more, but really it is about understanding your environment. So what is going to distract you that's going to make you procrastinate? Maybe it's like, oh, I'll just watch a Netflix show, and then it becomes a whole series. Not just a season, a whole series. Being able to know your environment to your workspace. What helps you stay focused? Is it being able to be at a desk? Is it a co-working space? Is it an office in your apartment, house? What does that look like for you? Maybe if there is a lot of noise around you, it's putting in like noise canceling, like headphones, or knowing if you have kids, having a babysitter, having your significant other, somebody to help you so you're not distracted. But that will really help with the procrastination, because then you won't have any excuses. And then manage your energy, not your time. So I actually spoke about one of my interviews that's going to be coming up. We talked about this heavily, about our energy, because I do believe, and I know I've talked about it as well, but I do believe it is when we are in a state of flow, our energy, our peak, when we are vibrant, where does our creativity flow? Like I know in the mornings, I am best for filming, writing content, Later in the afternoon, it's more engagement on social media, clients, things along those lines where I can mentally understand what I'm doing in that moment, but like being able to focus my energy where I know, okay, where is my best? Where is my least best? Where does my energy flow in that concept? But because I'm all for time management, but I think when we're able to understand where our energy goes, that will help with the time management. But it's really about energy, managing your energy versus your time, because that will help you get more accomplished and you won't procrastinate as much. Because I know if I have to film at night, it's not going to be my best. But that's being able to be transparent with myself and knowing managing my energy as well. Regular breaks. I cannot stress this enough. We were talking earlier about just like going through and not taking a break, how that can really be damaging. And when it comes to having time bound goals, so for instance, one of my previous videos a couple months ago now, but I was talking about the formula where it's like you work for about 30 minutes, 45 minutes, and take like a 15-minute break, and vice for like 3 sets of that time block. And being able to do that really helps like light a fire underneath, especially if you're the performer. That pressure that might really help you stay focused. But on the flip side too, like once you're done with that time goal, reward yourself, be able to give back to yourself, nourish yourself. So for instance, maybe it's you get to go on that walk, maybe it's you get to watch a quick show on Netflix. It could be all little things, having a cup of tea, reading a book, being able to do the things that you really enjoy, knowing, okay, wow, I got all this accomplished. But taking those breaks will allow you to get more done too if you know it's in a time bound goal. And then lastly, just get started. A lot of times we hold ourselves back, and that's where the procrastination comes into play. But if we just take that first step, that initial step, it's so much easier once we're already started versus having to just start. So it's jumping in, 2 feet in. You got this. I hope you have an amazing week, and let me know what was the biggest takeaway, but also what procrastinator are you? I'm dying to know. I will see you on the next video. Thanks for watching, and make sure to like, subscribe, and comment below.